First thing that impresses me about WebCon is that they put the process first.
European Collaboration Summit 2019 in Wiesbaden. Mike Fitzmaurice is with me. We last met in Copenhagen.
Yeah, it was Copenhagen.
In Copenhagen, yeah, the European Chapel Conference.
Yes.
But since then, I think there has something changed in your life and your profession. You have
Several
moved
things.
to a new company. Can you tell us about it?
No, I'm at WebCon now.
I've done several webinars for them
Yes,
already.
you're no
so,
stranger to WebCon. Europe is no stranger to WebCon. North America is a stranger to WebCon, and it's part of my job to change that.
what's WebCon doing?
WebCon is all about process automation, process improvement, process modeling. How about this? There are a lot of people in the business of doing workflow and business process automation. A lot of them have focused on external features and so on. WebCon's got features, but WebCon nailed the fundamentals better than any company I've ever seen. I've been following them or paying attention to them when I've been over here in Europe at other events. I've seen them from afar and go, what do you know? We started having conversations, and it made sense to join them because they care about the same things I care about.
And you not only have a big SharePoint history, you have also a big Workfront history.
Indeed.
And citizen developer is one of your topics you're talking about.
It is.
And so how has workflow developed over the years, evolved? I think currently with Power Apps and Flow, people are saying, oh, it's a commodity going back to the citizen developer.
Power Apps and Flow are low-code, no-code tools. I actually wouldn't classify them as citizen developer tools because they still require you to know a lot. In fact, to make them work together requires a lot of intimate knowledge of. Just because you're writing Excel-like functions does not mean that you're not geeking out in a big way. I don't know about you, but I've seen some pretty impressive Excel-style formulas in my time. So, you're not writing code, but you're still doing a lot of geeky work. I don't know if this may sound like heresy, but I'm not sure pure citizen development is going to work everywhere. There are certain places that have a culture that rewards it, and that's perfectly fine. But I've actually seen in some places a backlash against IT saying, okay, we're going to work on systems of record. You work on systems of innovation, and every once in a while we'll harvest the good stuff and turn them into systems of record. That's the way Gartner has advocated it could work, and I've been a proponent of it, but realistically speaking, a lot of business stakeholders want a role in building applications, but they don't want to skill up their own shadow IT departments, which kind of means what you need is tools that allow for citizen-assisted development, which means the citizen, the person that owns the problem plays a role, might be involved in creating the solution, but is much more likely to work hand in hand with someone with technical skills. And if you're going to do that, what you can't have is a citizen coming up with some requirements or some desires or so on, and then the technical person demanding formal specifications and so on. Then they go off for a long time, work on it, and bring it back, and then no one's happy. What you need is a sort of collaborative approach to development in which rapid change takes place, where the citizen has an idea, a vision, but not a perfect specification of what they want. Especially when it comes to business process automation, we kind of know what we don't want to have happen a lot of the time, especially because we've observed a big mistake, possibly a costly one. We know that instead of doing that, we should do this instead, but we might not have completely worked out everything that must happen. So I really think that business process solutions happen in a constant cycle of reflect, release, review, repeat.
But Flow and Power Apps make it easier to start with workflow if you haven't started.
Sure, of course.
But when you do some of the real stuff, you have to move to platforms like WebCom,
real
right?
is not the right term. I actually did a presentation here at the Collab Summit about different workflow and automation design patterns. Flow is the perfect tool, with or without Power Apps, for some of them. It depends on whether you're talking about application automation in some certain application integration scenarios or quick content routing, or whether you're talking about task management or case management or data harvesting or robotic process automation or transactions or things like that. There is a threshold. It's not even it's not a line, it's a continuum. There are certain use cases that Flow is perfect for. There are certain use cases that Flow is actually not designed for. If you talk to the Flow team, they have a very clear picture of what they're doing, and I actually think it's a good one.
What is it?
That it's the automation integration engine for everything in the Microsoft suite with connectors to other things. But the focus is on start it, monitor it, get it done, and get out. So I grab data from here, I do some things to it, I send it over to this application, and I'm done. You can use that inside of Dynamics. You can use that inside of SharePoint. You can use that inside of other products. But it's not meant for long-running, all-encompassing, multi-role business processes. There is a version of Flow that not a lot of people know about. Peter Badley did a pretty good session on this as well. There's something called business process flows that work with model-driven Power Apps that are both depend on the common data service. And in that kind of scenario, you actually can create a comprehensive app where the pieces talk to each other. But the version of Flow and Power Apps that you see today, the glue is you, my friend, because the Power App and the Flow and the data in a SharePoint list or whatever are completely independent of each other. The only thing uniting them into an application is you. Webcon doesn't work that way.
That's one of the question. What does Webcon, for me as an user of Webcon, does?
First thing that impresses me about Webcon is that they put the process first. If you look at what most people do, classic developers, and in fact, if you look at even business process flows that I was talking about before, even though I like them, they really are data first, build your entities, then build your forms, the model-driven Power App, and then and only then do you add some application logic in the form of a business process flow. And when you drop down to the out-of-the-box version of Flow and Power Apps that ship with Office 365, you're building data in lists, and then you build a Power App to represent the UX for it, and then you build a flow to sort of react to things people do to that data. It's not a business process. It's automation. It's fine. It's good. If you understand what it is, it's great for what it does, and it should be used for what it does. There's no one tool that does everything. But what Webcon does is you design your process map first, your workflow, and then you look at it and say, okay, in order to do this, I'm going to need this data. And then you say, okay, here are my fields. And then you say, at this stage of the workflow, I need these fields. At this step, I need these fields. So you basically do a mix and there's a checklist. So steps in the workflow across the top, fields along the side, check, 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 check. And then the user interface is generated for you on a template you specify. But the point is, the user interface does what the model tells it to do. So I don't have to write complicated formulas or JavaScript functions or something. When I move a form from you to me, Webcon actually looks at, okay, when this is handed to me for review or something like that, what fields should be there, which fields should be read-write, which should be required, which should be read-only, or so on. Same thing when you submit it in the first place. Essentially, the form pays attention to why it's being used.
Okay.
And the process model is incredibly flexible. And this is the part that I really, really love. It's designed for change. We have a trademark term called instant change, and it's great technology. And it basically means that you can make a change to the model anytime you want. And it immediately, when you say, I'm ready, propagates not only to new instances of the workflow, but all the existing ones that are in flight at the moment. So all of a sudden, I've got a form, I'm ready to work on it, and my buttons change to whatever it's supposed to be now. So you don't have to go chasing down everything that's already out there that's now obsolete and say, hey, we need to recall it and redo it, or I need to accept the fact that those aren't going to be right. I'm not going to hand WebCon to somebody that knows nothing about workflow. I can hand WebCon to someone who knows something about workflow but doesn't know every aspect of the SharePoint framework, for example. They're still going to be able to build fantastic SharePoint and Teams applications.
When you look at the market for the next year, what trends do you see?
Gosh, I see. Well, if you look at trends, and there's a lot of push towards robotic process automation, or there's a lot of interest in it.
And AI stuff integrating in that one?
Yes, absolutely. AI is actually in everything. But WebCon already has investments in AI. We can OCR things and map things to form fields and so on. We can do other things with deep learning and such. It's kind of nice, but robotic process automation it sounds like magic, and the people that tend to have robotic process automation offerings treat it like magic. What it really is web screen scraping. If you are working with, how can I best put this? If you're trying to integrate with an application that has no API, or the API, for lack of a better term, sucks. Robotic process automation can help you in a big way. What it does is it pretends to be a user operating the application in a browser and clicking and typing. So it literally like a robot. There are trends which are really happening in customer land, and there are zeitgeists that show up that show up in media and that get a lot of buzz. But in terms of what's really happening out there, look, what can I tell you? I think the biggest change that's happening is more and more organizations are trying to figure out the sweet spot for low-code, no-code, and citizen development. Like I said, at first IT did everything. Then there was an attempt to get citizens to do everything, or at least give citizen developers or give users something that they can play with by themselves so that they don't bother IT. I think it needs to be a bit more mature than that, and a lot of companies are actually trying to take a collaborative, cooperative approach. WebCon's very nicely positioned for that. The other thing I see happening is focusing on, for lack of a better term, business processes for change, business processes for not just doing things better, but doing better things. So it's not about efficiency. It's not about costs. Those things matter. We all care about them, but everybody cares about them, and it's not unique. What is unique is finding new opportunities or things that can be done now that couldn't be done before because they were too hard. There's a real trend towards doing that in automation, and the obsession with connectors on the part of a lot of things. So there are connector frameworks that you can plug into your own application, or you can use what's provided by Zapier or Flow or if this, then that, and do some really interesting work there.
Mike, thank you very much. As always, it was a real pleasure to talk to you. Good luck with WebCon and with your new job and your role. And I think on the next conference, we will do an update on that topic. Thank you very much.